sorry. My Lords, I understand that in order for legislation to have any meaning, it has to have some teeth and you have to be able to enforce it. Otherwise, it's a waste of time, especially something as important as the legislation we're discussing here. But I've just got a number of... I'm a bit troubled by a number of the themes of the amendments, and I therefore want to ask some questions, because when I saw that the government had put forward these amendments on senior manager liability, and then I also read both the Noble Lord Bethel's amendments and the Labour Party and Opposition's amendments, it seemed to me that there was even more people who are going to be held liable and responsible. And I suppose I have just a dread that this is kind of like lots of people going to be sacked, and then even the supply chain amendment, it seemed to me that this might dangerously spiral out of control and everybody be kept caught up in a kind of blame game. And I appreciate that I might not have understood this, so this is a genuine attempt at understanding it, because I'm concerned that these new amendments will force senior managers and indeed officers and staff to take an extremely risk-averse approach to content moderation, because they're not only now covering their own backs, but they've got to avoid jail. And as one of my concerns has always been that this will lead to the over-removal of legal speech and more censorship, that's a question I'd like to ask you. I also want to know how you think it will lie in relation to the UK being a science and technology superpower, because understandably some people have argued that these amendments are making the UK a hostile environment for digital investment, and I think there is something to be balanced up there. Is there a risk that this will lead to the withdrawal of services from the UK? Will it make working for these companies, British staff working for these companies, unattractive? And we've already heard that Jimmy Wales has vowed that Wikipedia, the Wikimedia Foundation, for example, will not scrutinise posts in the way that's been demanded by the bill. I mean, is he going to be thrown in prison, is what I'm saying, or will Wikipedia pull out? I mean, how do we kind of get the balance right here? And what exactly is the criminal offence that prison is threatened with? And maybe I have I think I might have misunderstood this, but I think that if we're in a situation where a technology company manager who's failed to prevent a child or young person from encountering legal but nonetheless legal, even if allegedly harmful speech, is considered in breach of these amendments, gets caught up in it and sent to prison, then I think we have to be very, very careful that we understand what this harmful speech is, as we've discussed previously, because the threshold for harm, which encompasses physical and psychological harm, is very vast, and it could mean people going to prison without us being clear what this precise criminal offence is. I mean, we talked earlier about, and we have spoken before about VPNs. If you have a tech-savvy 17-year-old who uses a VPN and accesses some of this harmful material, will somebody potentially be criminally liable for that young person getting around the law and potentially find themselves accused of dereliction of duty and potentially a criminal? And just my final question really is on penalties, because I do appreciate that, you know, when I originally was looking at this bill and you kind of hear about the eye-watering fines that might face some of these Silicon Valley companies, you know, to me it's like that will destroy them. And of course the blink of the eye, right? So I do get that, which would indicate to me that some of the endless conversation we've had here about does size matter, in this instance size does matter, because the same kind of liabilities will be afforded to not just the big Silicon Valley monsters that actually can, you know, bear these fines, but could apply to Mumsnet. Genuinely, couldn't it? Or am I missing something? Because they could be responsible. I mean, Mumsnet might not be the one, but is it not the case that smaller platforms could face similar liabilities because they could inadvertently, a young person could encounter harmful material? It's not all malign people trying to do this. Sometimes my unintended consequence argument is that I don't want to create criminals when there isn't really crime being committed. But it's a moral dilemma because I do understand enforcement.
My Lords, I'd like to raise